Thank you so much, dear Chair. Hi, dear all. My name is Hacer Topaktas. I am the professor of Istanbul University, and I am the head of the Slavic Languages and Literature Department and Polish Studies Department. It is a great pleasure to be here. I would like to thank dear Eva and Renata for their organization, beautiful organization. Today we are going to do Ottoman-Polish times in the 18th century, and I am focusing on the special cultural transfer via envoys in Ottoman-Polish relations in the 18th century. As you know, throughout history, diplomats have played a significant role in promoting culture, and envoys have long been crucial actors in the cultural encounters. In the Ottoman and Polish contexts, the missions of envoys included the transference of their representative cultures to the courts of the other, in addition to their political and diplomatic duties at the royal palaces of Warsaw and Istanbul. In the 18th century, the role of extraordinary envoys or ambassadors in the cultural exchange between the Ottoman and Polish courts was even more significant because following the Treaty of Karlowitz in 1699, even though relations between the two courts were no longer strained by the tension of war, they did not have permanent embassies in their respective capitals, Warsaw and Istanbul. In the same century, there were numerous occasions on which envoys needed to be sent between two cities, and those embassies often paved the way for the cultural exchange and transfer of cultures. This presentation focuses on the 4 diplomats who were involved in Ottoman-Polish interactions in the 18th century as extraordinary envoys. Throughout their work, they were involved in cultural representation and transmission by way of gift-giving and diplomatic transactions and expenditures and treaties of the host countries. Artistic expressions and different methods of commerce played as a role as well. Those envoys were Paul Bevenoye, Hacı Aliya, Karol Boskamp-Lasopolski, and Said Numan Bey. By examining how diplomats, embassies, and diplomatic encounters served as a means of cultural promotion and interaction between the Ottoman and Polish courts and elite society in the 18th century, this paper aims to show that at that time, when channels of communication were limited, diplomats served as a key representatives of cultural transfer and exchange, and diplomatic gift-giving was a significant element for cultural transfer and the means of demonstrating the esteem accorded to envoys. The gifts have given to important officials, particularly monarchs, promoted cultural interactions, as evidenced by how the various culturally endowed gifts presented by Ottoman Polish envoys in the 18th century increased in the popularity of the both cultures in their respective communities. These gifts were varied and included things like horses, carpets, fabrics, coffee, tobacco, watches, swords, amber, porcelain, fur kaftans, and fine fabrics. And the embassies shuttling back and forth between the Ottoman and Polish courts were thus also carrying out cultural exchanges through abundant and lavish gift-giving, thus also carrying out cultural exchange in addition to their political and diplomatic duties. In the 18th century, Ottoman diplomacy differed from that of the European countries. From the 16th to the 19th centuries, in particular, foreign diplomats in the Ottoman capital were hosted at ceremonies where the protocols of such celebrations were meticulously applied as a means of displaying the splendor of the Ottoman Empire. As such, European courts held to the Ottoman diplomatic tradition through their representatives in Istanbul. In the Ottoman tradition, gifts reflected the rank and status of the recipient, and such symbolic gifting also occurred at much higher levels as when it took place in monarchs. Prominent cultural elements of the Ottoman had garnered much attention in Europe, and gifts from the Ottoman court and elites were gladly accepted. Envoys served as a key mediators of these exchanges of the gifts. For example, when Ottoman and Polish envoys would prepare to set out on diplomatic missions to their respective courts, they would also pull together a rich trove of gift presents. The first example of the envoys is Pavel Benova, who has been in Istanbul 1742 and 43. The envoy of Poland-Lithuania sent to the Ottoman port in 1742. Benova had been tasked with improving relations between Ottoman Empire and Poland-Lithuania, resolving a number of boundary disagreements, and through Józef Potocki, great hetman of Crown, inquiring about the possibilities of securing the cooperations with Turks against Russia. After the Ottoman-Russian War of 1636 and 9, Poland-Lithuania was willing to normalize relations with the Ottoman Empire. August III informed Sultan Mahmud I in a royal letter that this was one of the reasons Benova had been sent to Istanbul. His embassy did not secure significant political results, but it left behind a number of historical traces in the archives, including issues related to protocol in Istanbul and problems with the dragoman and the conversion goods he took back to Poland. An example of the embassy of Benova, the Polish envoy and the members of his embassy were granted gifts by Grand Vizier Hekimoğlu Ali Pasha. Benova was closely acquainted with Ottoman society and Ottoman material culture. His long-term familiarity with the Turks, he could also speak Turkish, was helpful in deciding on the gifts that would be taken on the mission. In Wrocław, Benova purchased a variety of European and regional textiles, including velvet, satin, and silk fabrics, as well as Polish and Saxon porcelains. He also selected some English-made gold and silver items and watches, and so on. For the Polish envoy, Istanbul mission proved to be an excellent opportunity to acquire and take Eastern goods back to Poland. I mean, the embassy was the occasion for bringing to Poland some commercial items, Eastern Ottoman Turkish items to Poland as a commerce. Moreover, Benova's embassy served as an important model for the transport of Ottoman goods in Poland, because upon Benova's return to Poland, a Polish nobleman by the name of Andrzej Zawuski traveled to Istanbul with 12 men and returned to Poland with so many items that needed 30 to 40 horses to transport everything. In addition to goods they took to Poland, they acquired 9 horses, 2 pony horses, and 9 camels. Proper planning on and supporting of the Ottoman escort Mihmandar named Ebu Bekir Ağa were essential to smooth conveyance of the Polish envoy and his goods. Until the end of the 18th century, in line with Ottoman tradition concerning foreign diplomats, Polish envoys received a tayinat, which is a sum of money, allowance, daily allowance, we say, that is given to cover the daily expenses of an envoy. Benova received a daily amount of 200 kurush per day. The second example, just a second. The second example is Hacı Ali Ağa, Ottoman envoy. He at the end of the 1744, Hacı Ali Ağa was appointed as an envoy to Poland and Lithuania, and in 1755 he was dispatched to the court of King August III and Elector of Saxony to officially inform the monarch about the instatement of the new Ottoman Sultan. Sultan Mahmud I had died and at the end of the year, and Osman III had ascended the throne. Following Ottoman tradition, news about the new Sultan's accession was delivered by the extraordinary envoy to Poland. It is a tradition, at that time. A text written in verse by the secretary of the Ottoman envoy's embassy provides description of Poland and Polish society. Polish society. as well as brief depiction of the role of envoys in terms of cultural interactions. Ali Ağa made a rather long journey to Wrocław, not to Warsaw, just Wrocław, and when he finally arrived, he was lavished with attention by Polish nobles and society as the Ottoman cultural envoy to Poland. Numerous exchanges of gifts and cultural encounters took place on the occasion of invitation, banquets, and receptions, as a result of which the embassy contributed to the revival of the relation with the Poland and Polish culture among the Turks. Ottoman embassies thus provided the means of which important cultural encounters took place between Poland, Lithuania, and Ottoman Empire. In the example of Hacı Ali Ağa's journey in 1755, unlike other Ottoman envoys, Ali Ağa had the opportunity to see many cities and villages in Poland, and he attracted a lot of attention from the Polish people. The fact that great Hetman Jan Klemens Branitzky invited the Turkish envoy to his city Białystok, and the audience he held with King August III took place not in Warsaw, just in Wrocław. It is near the Saxonia. He met with numerous Polish bureaucrats and elites, resulting in extensive cultural exchanges and exchanges of the gifts, and interactions. At those gatherings and banquets, he introduced his hosts to his own culture, while at the same time he took in everything he could about Polish culture. The gifts presented to Ali Ağa were in line with the gift literature of the century. Now you see. Also consisting of items such as cloaks, knives, and other weapons, tobacco boxes, and porcelain goods. Ali Ağa responded in kind with Ottoman-style gifts: horses, fabrics, tobaccos, coffee, and pipes, so on. Through his envoy, Sultan Osman III presented King August III with 3 beautiful horses, adorned with richly decorated harnesses and several expensive tapestries as well. As for King August III, he sent gifts such as fine tableware, silver, gold, and porcelain goods to the Ottoman Sultan, and similar items were given to Ali Ağa as a gift of the king, but ultimately they were deemed to be insufficient for an envoy, as see his embassy report. Great Hetman Jan Klemens Branitzky also gave the Ottoman Empire his entourage a number of expensive gifts as well. The other example of today for you is Karol Wąska-Klosowski, envoy of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth to the Ottoman Empire. After the signing of the Treaty of Küçük Kaynarca with Russia, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and Ottoman Empire were eager to normalize and improve bilateral relations. In that political context, Karol Wąska-Klosowski was appointed as an extraordinary envoy to Istanbul in 1776. The envoy was assigned missions such as solving problems in political and commercial relations and establishing a permanent embassy in Istanbul, because at that time there was no permanent embassy in Istanbul, Polish embassy, The main goal of the legation was the option confirmation of the Treaty of Karlowitz, and at the time extended its terms to include provisions that would facilitate Polish Black Sea trade. It was very important at that time for Poland. Boscom was also to make efforts to the Ottomans send a Turkish envoy to Warsaw, the aim of which was to ensure the Ottoman Empire's recognition of King Stanislaw August Poniatowski. At that time there was envoy exchanges and at the same time. Boskamp arrived in Istanbul in 1777 and first received by the Grand Vizier Darendeli Mehmet Pasha. Naturally, numerous cultural encounters occurred during his embassy. As an envoy, Boskamp brought Polish culture to Istanbul by way of gifts, presenting the Sultan with porcelain objects such as clocks and the other stuffs purchased from the Messian factory. It is very popular. It was very popular at the time, which was renowned for its products. In addition, the furs and kaftans presented to him and his legation were taken to Poland, representing yet another occasion to introduce Ottoman culture to Warsaw. Russia was disturbed by Boskamp's activities in Istanbul, and because of Russia, the undertaking of Boskamp's embassy were ultimately left unfinished and hence did not achieve the desired outcomes, and the envoy returned to Poland in 1778. Nevertheless, he did not neglect to take a large number of Ottoman cultural goods with him. The Polish envoy was initially received by Sultan Abdülhamid I in 1777 during his first audience. The Polish envoy presented to Sultan the following items, for example, gold writing sets, clocks, and pillows, velvet pillows, and cushion covers, and some textiles, and also washcloths and ewer made in Saxony. You know, at that time, Saxonian porcelains were very popular. And during the second audience, in the presence of the Sultan, different gifts also Boskamp gave the Sultan, presented the Sultan. Persian mirror, for example, watch, and door curtain. Polish mirrors decorated with amber. Polish chairs decorated with amber, for example. Chinese fabrics, and so on. During his first audience, the Sultan presented Boskamp with 2 sable furs trimmed in broad cloth and 7 embroidered furs for the envoy's son, because Boskamp came to Istanbul with his sons, 2 sons. When he held a second audience with the envoy, he presented him to 2 sable furs trimmed in broadcloth, and the Grand Vizier's gift consisted of 4 furs for the Boskamp's sons and 2 fur kaftans for the chief secretary of the embassy. Painting of the embassy executed by young Christian Kamsetzer, the legation's painter, as you see some pictures from these paintings, created a new atmosphere in Istanbul by way of his presence as an artist from Poland. Moreover, by way of his paintings and engravings, the artist also took Ottoman culture, society, and ceremonies back to Poland and Polish court, and he also brought the streets, historical sites, people, and seascapes of the 18th century Istanbul down to the present day through their vivid depiction, as you see. The practice of granting a tayinat was maintained in the case of Boskamp, of course. It was an Ottoman tradition at that time. All of the extraordinary envoys were received daily allowance from the Ottoman Empire to the end of the 18th century. And during his journey, also Boskamp received some amount of allowance, and then in Istanbul, during his whole embassy, he could get some allowances, I mean tayinat. The gifts of Boskamp, as you see here, and records from the Ottoman Palace archive here, you can see which kind of gifts gave Boskamp. It is the record of the tayinat, I mean daily allowance of the Boskamp in the Ottoman archives, as you see. Firstly, Boskamp, envoy, had to demand some tayinats. After that, Ottoman Palace gave them some daily allowance. I'm listed. Young Christian Kamsetzer, painter of the Boskamp's embassy, as I mentioned, painted all of the embassy occasions, all of the events, and so on. And the last example of me today is Said Numan Bey, the last Ottoman envoy to the Poland-Lithuania before the partition of Poland-Lithuania. Said Numan Bey, in reciprocation for Boskamp's visit, Numan Bey was sent to Warsaw by the Ottoman Porte in 1777. He could congratulate King Stanislav August Poniatowski on his accession, and he was to formally inform the King of Poland that Abdülhamit I has ascended to the Ottoman throne. Numan Bey's appointment, however, was rather late for that mission, so he was now tasked with undertaking efforts to regulate trade relations and seek out greater cooperation between the two countries. During his 7-month stay in Warsaw, he further introduced Poland and Turkish culture, and he also became intimately familiar with Polish culture by way of invitations, balls, and gatherings. Although his embassy report contains only political issues, thanks to his translator, Antoni Kurutta, he was the palace translator, official translator of the Polish palace. We have detailed information regarding his stay in Warsaw, including description of the gatherings he attended, gifts that were exchanged, and his interactions with the Polish king and elites. As happened in the case of Boskamp, the embassy of Numan Bey was also cut short because of Russian intervention, and so was unable to achieve the desired results, and he had to leave Warsaw in 1778. Although Numan Bey's embassy did improve Ottoman-Polish relations, it did not achieve much in the way of tangible outcomes. The last Ottoman envoy to Poland, Numan Bey, was an important facilitator of cultural interactions, and his embassy exemplifies how cultural encounters between the two countries transpired. As a representative, he helped spread Ottoman culture with the gifts he presented and the activities he carried out during his residence in Warsaw. Polish statesmen and elites gave the Ottoman envoy gifts such as porcelain wares, watches, Polish desserts, and various types of swords and knives on a number of occasions. In return, Numan Bey gave his host typical Oriental gifts such as Eastern fabrics, hand kerchiefs, Turkish coffee, tobacco, and pipe bowls. As a tie knot, also each day Numan Bey was given 56 ducats. Numan Bey held an audience with the Polish king in 1777. The Sultan's gifts to the king included beautiful horses, various kinds of harnesses and saddles, fine fabrics, and cushions, carpets, and Oriental fragrances. Especially horses were very popular at that time, and the most important item of the present package at that time. Such gifts did not go unreciprocated, of course. The Polish king sent the Ottoman envoy and his suite a number of gifts. The master of horses and first servant and valet received a roll of precious fabric. The Haznedara, treasurer of the embassy, was given a diamond ring, and the Silahdara, who was in charge of the embassy weapons, got a gold snuff box. The embassy translator received a gold watch with a chain, and so on. Another instance of the gifting took place with Marshal Franciszek Rzewuski. In order to teach the marshal's cooks to process of making Turkish coffee, Numan Bey asked his kahvecibaşı, chief of coffee, and tütüncübaşı, chief of tobacco, to visit him and bring along the necessary equipment, together with some coffee beans, Sultan-style tobacco, bowls, pieces of aloe tree, and tobacco pipe, balm of Mecca, and a kind of Oriental cake. Marshal Rzewuski delightedly drank this coffee and gave 30 ducats to the kahvecibaşı and tütüncübaşı. The next day, Numan Bey asked his mühürdar, seal maker, to pay a visit to Marshall and take him some gift of fabric, camlet of Angora. It was very popular at that time also. And embroidered shovels, and also make a request to hold an audience with the Polish king. A gift was the way of receiving some meetings at that time, as I mean. During Numan Bey's stay in Poland, the Polish people had the chance to bear witness to daily life of the Ottoman through the example of his activities. The Polish elite were particularly fascinated by the religious holidays of Muslims and the tradition of fasting during Ramadan. At our gathering, the Polish host made a notable effort to welcome their Muslim Turkish guests, which was striking as was their Turkish-style hospitality. Even such as those gatherings are significant examples of how diplomats were transferring of culture. The Ottoman delegation spent a few days in Piaseczno in order to finalize their preparation for their official entrance into Warsaw. Numan Bey ended up staying there for 4 days at the invitation of locals, during the course of which a metal crescent was even placed on the roof of the town hall to commemorate the arrival of the Ottoman envoy. The town hall, which was made of wood, it was burned, but later it was built again, and now we can see this crescent. Numan Bey's cooks also taught the people of Piaseczno how to make ponçki, a donut, like Turkish dessert, as known as lokma. We say in Turkish lokma, and ponçki had some connections, which is now very popular in Poland. Numan Bey frequently visited Polish bureaucrats and elites. Naturally, the Poles did not fail to make the return visit to the Ottoman envoy, and as might be expected, those visits were accompanied by copious amounts of gifts and delicacies. If a banquet was to be held, the envoys had chief would go to the host home and prepare meals in the Ottoman style also at that time. The Ottoman envoy took part in Polish salon gatherings in step with Polish elites during the various events he attended. At the request of the Polish king, the envoy also posed for Marcello Bacciarelli, the court painter at the royal castle, and thus had his portrait painted. In a way, this represented an effort on behalf of the Ottoman envoy to keep up with Polish palace culture. And in Ottoman tradition of the 18th century, portraits were not uncommon. Were uncommon even for government officials, and only the portraits of the few Ottoman envoys we have now from the 18th century. Polish porcelains, as you see, Belvedere from Belvedere fabric, and Saxony porcelain constituted the majority of the gifts that were given to Ottoman envoy, and upon his return to the port, Numan Bey introduced Polish culture and porcelain to Istanbul. He also brought a dinner set, a gift, as you see now, a King of Poland, to the Ottoman Sultan. In 1772, King Stanislaw August Poniatowski had established a small porcelain factory at the Warsaw Belvedere Palace, and it should come as no surprise that in 1778, when Numan Bey and Ottoman envoy returned to Istanbul, they brought with them 160 pieces of Polish-made porcelain dining ware, on which was written in Ottoman Turkish, "Made in Warsaw." Now, these porcelains are in Museum of Topkapı Palace. Still, you can see some pieces of course, not all of them. If we make a comparative analysis of the cultural transfer in Ottoman-Polish diplomacy, in the course of Ottoman-Polish encounters, it became possible to satisfy that curiosity of the other and to have an opportunity to get to know the other throughout the exchange of cultural materials as gifts, as evidenced by the experiences of the 18th century Ottoman-Polish diplomats. Lavish gift giving was an integral part of the work of the various embassies that were sent to Ottoman and Polish capital. From the time they crossed the border in Cochin onward, and especially in Istanbul during the course of ceremonies and gatherings, there were several mutual exchanges of the gift. The Polish envoys presented the Ottoman with porcelain watches and textiles generally. As was the case of Europe, gifts were essential in diplomatic negotiations. In the Ottoman court. On the issue of gifting, my colleague Mariusz Kaczka has pointed out that it belonged to the complex system of supporting envoys from foreign countries. Apart from that, I will argue that from the Ottoman perspective, the gift giving was a way to show the value and respect accorded to envoys and their rulers. In the 18th century, I mean. Gifts were also crucial for the being granted an audience with the Sultan. In both Polish and Ottoman palace culture, gifts were markers of the wealth, and gifting was an indicator of the giver's affluence. The meaning of gift giving was based on the notion of a warm welcome, generosity, reciprocity, and power. In Ottoman-Polish case, diplomatic giving was reciprocal, and gift elicited a gift in return from the other party. While the case of Ottoman-Polish gift giving was a part of the European tradition of diplomacy and adhered to the same fundamental rules, it differed in terms of nature of the gifts and significance attributed to them. Moreover, gift giving had a permanent place in Ottoman-Polish relations as a part of traditional diplomatic ceremonies and gatherings. The gift giving that took place during the visit of embassy in Istanbul and Warsaw was indicative of the significant material and cultural exchange between the elites of the Ottoman Empire and Poland and Lithuania. In addition to horses and harnesses, the Ottomans presented their Polish guests with kaftans, which influenced the use of Eastern textile in Polish style clothing, as yesterday we mentioned about it. The Polish side gifted the Ottomans with the European-made products and local Saxon textiles and porcelain, and such as contributed to the spread of Polish-style porcelain in the Ottoman daily life. Elite life. Thus, the Ottoman and Polish material cultures continued to exist in harmony. On occasion of their embassies, Polish diplomats purchased goods in Istanbul, and they were in high demand in Poland at that time, and as a consequence, they interacted with Ottoman society. Although it was expensive to buy and transport Turkish goods, it was worth the expense. In the 18th century, the exchange of the gifts between the Ottoman and Polish people was reciprocal. As cultural conducts, embassies played a vital role in these interactions. However, the interaction between the Ottoman and Polish sides was more expensive than in other cases. The most common gifts given during the audiences of Polish envoys and other European envoys were kaftans, or ceremonial robe of honor, hilat in Turkish we say, as well as horses and horseback. Such kaftans had a strong influence on the attire of the nobility in Poland from the 16th to the 19th centuries. In the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Ottoman kaftans were an important part of male attire, and that style of clothing was an indicator of the one's background and long-standing interaction with the Ottoman Empire. Even in the 19th century, Polish aristocrats preferred to wear kaftans, jupan, trousers and shoes in Ottoman style, while in the 18th century, Polish diplomats generally wore traditional Polish attire, including a kontusz, which was a long outer garment not unlike on Ottoman kaftan. This in return led to the recognition of Polish dress culture in the Ottoman court. Saxon porcelain and specially produced porcelain were created at the newly established factory during the reign of Poniatowski, were gifted to the Ottomans. In the 18th century, European porcelain began to gain popularity in the Ottoman court, and Ottoman princesses were also very enamored by porcelain items, especially cups, as we see. Likewise, porcelain was among the most popular gifts of the Polish envoys, diplomats who traveled to Istanbul for their missions. In the 18th century, Polish diplomats made the custom of including porcelain were among the assemblies of gifts intended for the Sultan and other bureaucrats. This resulted in the spread of European and Polish porcelain, supplanting Chinese porcelain in Ottoman palace and palace circles. The visit of Polish diplomats were almost fully financed by the Ottoman treasury through the tayinat payments, I mean allowance, daily allowance, that were allotted to them. In a sense, those payments were also kind of gift for the Polish envoys. It could be argued that this allowance system served as an additional purpose, such as introducing Polish diplomats to Ottoman cuisine, based on the fact that Turkish-specific foods were included in the allotments. Similarly, if we consider the list of allotments drawn up by the Polish authorities for the Ottoman envoys to Poland, it could also be concluded that the envoys brought Turkish cuisine to Poland. In any case, Polish nobles and Ottoman pashas participated in the exchange of the gifts and cultural transfer in bordering regions as well. These nobles and pashas, who were responsible for overseeing the journeys of the ambassadors from the border of the capital, were involved in a network of hospitality and thus became a part of this cultural exchange and transfer and acted as cultural carriers. Even if they did not meet personally, rulers in the 18th century displayed their status through gifts. They were thus able to demonstrate their presence in another country and the importance they accorded to other rulers and their diplomats by presenting them with gifts. All of these examples of gift giving can be seen as a means of demonstrating the power and wealth of a country, and it is ruled through the size or value of a gift. In addition, it can be seen as a means of fostering and bolstering good relations with the envoy's destination country, and on such occasion, envoys one more introduced their hosts to the society and culture to which they belonged. At the same time, the envoys transferred their own culture to the other country through this gift exchange. Thank you so much. Oh.